Hello, everyone. We are here in Puerto Morelos. Okay, this is one of my first, I think my first actually XJW interview with my good friend Fernando. Uh, it's kind of a cool connection with us because technically both our cards are in the same congregation right now. And so we have the exact same body of elders. We kind of left at the exact same time, and we both left with kind of a lot of drama for the elder body. Which is it's for kind of funny. I met Fernando in October of 2012 when I was doing my first month of missionary work where the need was great, and I was like, I'm the best pioneer ever, and like I'm here to save these people. And when I first met you, we had I'm going to use first names, but we can't really give people away. But it was Tim as like the only elder really, and then you had you and Pio as our ministerial servants, and then I wasn't a servant yet. You technically were a servant before me. I was just a regular pioneer. My brother was a servant, and he was there with, and I was there with my sister-in-law, and we were down there. The English congregation was brand new. You were helping out with that, and it was kind of interesting because it was my first time ever going somewhere where there wasn't really territory.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like I got there and we're like, well, how do we pioneer? And I never been anywhere where I had a hard time getting hours because there really wasn't much to do. This is before the carts, so there was no cart work yet. So it was literally door to door, and there really was like 50 houses, and most of these people wouldn't even talk to us because they're in Mexico because they don't want to talk to anybody. And it was an interesting concept. I mean, it was cool because it was quaint and everyone kind of knew each other in the congregation. Even when you're talking about Ted and Lisa, who were crazy, they were still fun to be around, And I mean, everything about Puerto Morelos in the congregation was about fun because technically speaking, all the Americans and Canadians were on vacation. Would you agree?
Yes.
There was
They'll come down all like six months of the year. Then once they have good jobs and retirement, the other ones they might come for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Even young ones. Yeah.
I mean, there was a core group of people such as myself that actually came down there for the right reasons. And we kind of carried the congregation in a way, but most people just sat on their butt watching Netflix all day. And it's so funny, but I don't want to sit here and talk about myself so much. We'll get back in the congregation drama and things like that. So we're going to do a regular XJW interview with you, and we'll just talk about, the first question is, how did you come to be a Jehovah's Witness in the first place?
Well, I was technically born in it. My mom was not baptized yet, but she had been in the religion as a publisher for so many years. So my mom got the truth, or supposed to be the truth, the witness truth, when
Indoctrinated.
her husband when her husband died. She met my dad, but they had some troubles, and so the witnesses came knocking at her door. She, it sounded good because they promised my mom to see her recently dead husband again. So,
are you saying that Jehovah's Witnesses look for vulnerable people?
What I'm trying to say is that yes, actually, yes. Yeah, to be truthful, yes. So after that, my mom took it on and she liked it. So then I was born. So yes, I was basically born and raised in the religion. Yes.
Okay. And did your dad get baptized?
My dad, no. He was actually very much opposed to the religion. Not necessarily for the self-righteous or the righteous reasons. He just didn't like my mom to be all good and stuff like that. But he did at some point in his life try to study, and I think he recognized what it was, so he kind of stopped studying. Yeah. But that was later on in my life when I was probably 16, 17.
Was he Catholic or anything like that?
Yes, very much Catholic. In fact, there was a little bit of how to call it, tug of war between us kids, because my mom would take us to the Kindle Hall, and my dad on Sundays would take us to church. So at that point, even as kids, we were very much indoctrinated. Um, so we every time we went to church, to mass or Catholic church, we kind of didn't pay attention, or we kind of not behaving. So my dad would take us out of there and just bring us to McDonald's or something like that.
Okay. And you have a brother and a sister, correct?
We're in fact six.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah, we are. We have. I have
I've never met
two
any of them.
sisters.
I've just heard like, random times you told me about them and things like that. Okay, I didn't know
Yeah, yeah.
that there were six.
I did have a sister that, again, we all grew up as witnesses, and because of my father not being a witness, my siblings basically they left um, when they became about 15, 16 years old. They left completely. My oldest sister, she continued to be a witness. Uh, right now, she is not a witness anymore, disfellowshipped, but she does not live the witness life anymore. She does not believe in the witnesses and their beliefs. And the one that is still being a witness is my mom. I will get to her in a few
Yeah.
minutes. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it was.
Um, did you now, being the fact that your father was not a witness, things like that, how did that affect you with your relationship with elders or with other families in their congregation? Do you think that was any kind of form of discrimination, or people didn't care?
I actually, well, no, actually not. My father left a couple times. He left us a couple times, and the few times that he left us, actually, the elders did take care of us, as in some ways, because again, we get to that too, but because they were good people, and they saw my mom struggling with six kids. So at that point, they were good people. They were helping us. Uh, I was basically a project for several elders.
Yeah,
Since
I
my
get
father
that.
was
Okay.
since my father wasn't there, they took me in their wings, and some other brothers did too. And they wanted me to, become a servant and elder and stuff like that. So I became projects. And as much as I appreciate that, I don't like to be a project.
No, I get
So
that, and both of us are pragmatic types when we're talking typology. And granted, we don't mind helping people. We like to do it in our own way and don't like to be
yeah,
meddled with. And with that being said, I know this is your interview, but I kind of can relate with that. Dude, my dad was disfellowship for 7 years of my life, and I definitely had elders, constantly like pulling me aside, and I think elders naturally want to control other people because that's why they got in the position in the first place. And so
yeah,
when they see someone, a fatherless boy or a widow, let me run their life. It definitely they see that as a great opportunity to do that, because when you're dealing with kids who have a father and a mother in the congregation, you kind of have two people to get around, and most others get a lot of kickback from parents for good reason. You're like, hey, this is my kid, you get out of here. But with you were into Spanish, correct?
yes. I was in Spanish until I was 16, 15, 16,
Okay.
something between there.
And where
And
was
from
this?
16 on, well, several places. That was Cancun, and then there's Chetumal, which is like the capital city of the state, very unknown city, um, very small and quiet city as well. And then we moved back to Cancun. So most of my younger witness life was between Cancun and that city.
Okay. All right. So if I ask you a personal question, you said I can go to these
Yeah,
places if you want me to.
yeah, yeah.
When did you realize that you were gay?
uh, when I was six, probably.
Okay. And so did you find that a struggle in the congregation? Were you like attracted to people and things like that?
As a child, not really. Of course, I was not aware that what gay was. I always wanted to
Interesting.
be
Okay.
close to it. I I was attracted to the boys, but I was always we always hang out. We were always out, and so for my mom was good because I am very introverted. It was as a kid. So when I had a friend, somebody I liked, I didn't know I had that attraction. I liked the kid. And it's like, okay, I want to spend time with him. He's cool. He's fun. Um, so my mom saw it as a good opportunity for me to hang out with other kids. I would not get into gay things, but just being able to be with that one guy or kid, it was good when I was a kid too. It became a struggle when I was a teenager because then I did realize completely that I like guys. Um, so at that time I was in the English congregation, so there were a couple kids I like, teenagers at my own age, and that became a struggle. I got to a point that I did actually became very depressed. I would even cry at night because I knew there was something, according to the witnesses, something wrong,
Yeah.
and something that was really hard for me because I had those fantasies, and sometimes relive the fantasies. Uh, so I kind of felt bad, every time
You
I would see those
tell.
kids. I could elaborate.
So we're gonna keep this G rated. All right.
Yeah. But yes, I felt depressed. I felt bad every time I would see those kids because I had fantasies about them. Um, so it did become a struggle. It
Yeah.
became because there were people in my that I hang out with. There were people in my group, so we had contact as friends, going to the beach, you know, um, especially going to the beach and dancing with friends and doing all of that. So we always had this much contact. So
Yeah.
when there was somebody I like, there was no way to avoid it because it's like, oh, I like you, but we were in a group. I was not liked back, at least I think so. Um, so that kind of became a situation. No, I never told them I liked them. By the way, just
Okay. And so you didn't have any kind of like weird. Did you watch the interview with Germ, mentally diseased? And he talked about how he was trying to control his feelings with a safety pin and like was stabbing himself.
I did not have that.
Yeah, I never did
I
either. I've
no,
always been good at
but
suppressing feelings.
yes, at least I didn't not do that physically, but I guess mentally would be in a way that I would constantly be on my guard and like kind of say, okay, Jehovah doesn't like that. So that would be like a pen in my, like the pin in my skin, all like just in my mind. I was constantly aware of who I was and who I was with, and I was pretending most of the time. You learn to be an actor in
Yeah,
order to overcome those situations because you always have to think ahead of every conversation of how you're moving. Okay, we all in that car clamping together, so I want to be make sure I'm not sitting down next to like the guy I like, you know. So you try to avoid the circumstances, situations where you cannot be by yourself with those people.
yeah.
So
I think often about myself, and when I see stories like Germs, for instance, and I wonder why I didn't really have those emotional struggles like other people do. I think I actually have to blame this on a lot of things because I was doing like some secret stuff with some friends, like in the dark, in the shadows, no talking, just like touching, but I never really thought of myself as gay, and I'm sure they didn't either because they're all married now. But who knows how happily married, but because being married does not mean anything, and you and I both know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I think it was because I guess I kind of was already acting upon it in my own way that I didn't really
Yeah.
struggle with that emotionally. Did you ever have anything like that when you were younger? Because like my first experience with somebody else was I was 5 years old. And so
Mhm.
I think 5, then like
I, 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 I did have experiences, but not with the witness friends. I did later on. We will elaborate to that, but I did have again because not my father not being a witness, I was free to have friends outside the congregation.
okay, yeah, you had a little
And
scapegoat.
yeah, so I did have friends that I grew up with, friends from school. So I did fool around with kids. I mean, not kids. I mean, with guys. Well, at that time I was a teenager. With other teenagers from school, or um, so that's what actually did not help in my mentally punishing myself because I knew I was doing some of the stuff and trying to live the witness life. But in compared to that, I did knew I was gay. I did know I was gay, um, but I never felt bad really of being gay. I just felt bad about trying to live up to the witness life.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that makes sense.
but later on, I did became much guilt driven because then as much you're growing up, you become you got baptized. I got baptized later when I was 17, almost 18. So that from that point on, that's when I became very much like, oh, this is a sin. I need to change this. Jehovah's gonna kill me, and all of that. But
Literally.
before that,
For those not
before
watching,
that, I
for
knew
those watching this who are not witnesses, yes, we literally thought that. Okay.
yes,
So
yes,
this is
and
how witnesses live. You literally think you're going to die every day. And so,
yeah, you never know if you're waking up alive or not. You never know if while you're sleeping because you thought about this guy naked in your bed,
yeah,
you will wake up dead. I mean, don't even wake up. That's the point. And so I, I mean, I'm sure you thought about that too, but it was stressing because even the whole thinking it was a crime, thinking
yeah,
about it. It was just complete a crime, a sin. And you turn around, it's like all the elders know I was dreaming about this. The elders know because they all have this Holy Spirit, so they know. So they're protecting me, they're taking me as a project because they know I'm gay. Even if they have no idea in my head, that's what it was.
yeah. And when you say about, you said earlier about, I thought this was wrong due to Jehovah's Witness teaching. And at the time, there really is no distinction between Jehovah's Witness teaching and what we believed, because they were
Yeah,
one and the
yeah.
same, and so,
Yeah, now I can say that because now I know the difference. But at that point, it
yeah.
was no distinction.
Yeah, and from a very young age, that's why I thought it was interesting that you said you didn't know much about gay people at 6. I said this in my video of my coming out story. I was joking with my friends at 4 and 5 years old of age about oral sex and knowing all about this kind of stuff. Because if people are not familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, they teach the same sermon to all ages.
Yes,
And so they'll be on stage talking about anal sex, oral sex, gay sex, straight sex, bestiality, and there's 2-year-olds in the audience listening to this.
yes,
And so you're kind of aware of all these things, and so it's not like you have a Sunday school where they talk about Adam and Eve and fruit, and for the kids, it's like literally the same sermon for all ages.
yes,
You kind of grow up with the very demented idea and you're very aware of it, and you have people politically arguing that, hey, we shouldn't be teaching kindergartens these things like sex ed, for instance. That's too young. Witness has been doing this for 100 years.
hmm yeah,
And so, yeah, I mean, sex is very real. I remember talking about it with my friends at very young ages, and things like that. And so let's get back on track and off that, but you mentioned at 18 you got baptized. Was that
correct.
still in the
About
Spanish congregation or was that in the Italian? Because I remember
no,
you
that
telling me, because Italians when you kind of want to become a witness.
Um, yes, about 16, I think I was 16. I was coming, I came back from, I lived in the capital city of the state because I had to go there for school. So I lived there with my sister, and I'm just giving a preview of what's happening when I became baptized. I got involved with a son of an elder. I was not baptized, I was just a publisher. Um, I basically ran away from the house and I told them this is what happened. And I did not really, well, it was no basically rape or anything like that. I was willing to do that, but it got to a point where my witness conscience says this is wrong. Uh, and I was very much ashamed to confront the elders about that. So it's like, okay, the best option is for me just to go home. So I ran away from my sister's house home, and I went to my mom or my parents' home back in Cancun. I told my mom I was there just for a few days because I had a few days from school. In the meantime, I left a note to my sister explaining what was happening.
Okay.
So later on, I told my mom during that when I was home. So we went back to Chetumal. So we had the meeting with the elders and stuff like that. He basically just had a slap in the hand.
Okay.
Um,
Lucky you.
but he was involved. He was involved, quote unquote, in magic and stuff like that. So he did eventually let the witnesses do, way before me. Uh, but uh, but after that, my mom decided I needed to go home. So we went back home, and I started going to the Spanish meetings. And there was a sister that was one of my mom's studies that was going to the English meetings. So that's when I went to the English meetings, I made friends there, and that's like when I said, okay, I need to change my way of life, and otherwise I'm gonna die. uh, my kids, my cat. But so yes, I became a witness. Got baptized in Belize, actually. Uh, I don't even remember the name of the convention, but I got baptized in Belize. So from one point on, I became a hardcore witness.
Okay,
Trying my
did you
best.
change the English this time?
Sorry?
You switched to English when you got baptized?
Yeah, because I got baptized in the English.
Okay. And this
Yeah.
is this when you started like learning a bunch of languages?
Well, yeah, by default, I did learn Italian because of my grandfather. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it was very early in my life, but I still had I had some of the language still in my head. It was basically a dialect. And later on, I did study actual Italian, but it was easy for me. I basically just read the exercise books.
Yeah. No, you have a knack
But
for languages. I remember we were in Greece together and you were like starting to learn language there already. You're definitely a linguist. Fernando speaks 5 languages, by the way. He's been doing
no,
it
no, no,
forever.
I speak three. I speak three.
3. he
I'm
speaks English,
learning.
Spanish, Italian, Deutsch, and Francais.
Um, I'm learning French and taking back my German. I was
Uh,
studying some
well,
German.
well, the fact that you learned it at all, because there's no, well, there are French Canadians there. I guess you have somewhat an ability to practice with them. But I was always really impressed with that about you. And I actually kind of thought you were like full of crap until I saw you speak Italian in Italy. And then I was like, oh, maybe he wasn't lying, you know? And so, because I mean, you don't just like test people, but things like that. And for a little Italian I knew, I thought I was impressed with your accent and everything like that. And it seemed to work. You know, everyone understood you there.
Yeah, I felt very much at home when we were in Rome because that's finally. I mean, in Playa del Carmen, there's a lot of big Italian community.
Yeah.
Um, but when we were at Rome and Italy, I felt really much at home because I could communicate.
Okay. Well, I'm derailing you. I'm sorry. So you got baptized. You didn't want to die, and so you became a hardcore Jehovah's Witness. What did that mean? Did you start pioneering anything like that?
I did actually pioneering. Um, I did volunteer to go to Belize, to the Maya Mountains in the middle of nowhere, with a bunch of friends. That's what we used to call the pioneer routes. So I did go there for 3 months. When I came back, I moved to Playa del Carmen. And so in Playa del Carmen, I did became a regular pioneer. I did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, it was a nightmare.
It sounds like it because, a lot of people think, I'm like, I went down there and I was pioneering there in Mexico, but I'm going to try to say this as PC as possible. I wasn't making Mexican wages, and working and making that much money because Mexicans have to work a lot to get by, and so it's not like when I was down there, I either had an American job or I had money saved up. And so for you to pioneer, that means you probably worked all day and then did service at night.
Yeah, something like that. I did have part-time jobs, which it did not quite help either because the income is not enough. So I did a
Yeah.
part-time job. Then I would pioneer, and I did that for the 2 years. And even with a part-time job, I was working with a brother. Who wasn't really a good example as a brother, anyways. But so I was working for a brother, and he would allow me to pioneer more. But it's still, there's a lot of things going on, like the friends partying and going to the beach and stuff like that. So as much as you wanted to spend the time out on the service, there was always distraction.
Yeah. You got to go to Coco Bongo or something.
Actually, we did go to Coco for a few
I've never
times.
been there still. I have not been to Coco Bongo. It's like a racy club where they have live music, and apparently witnesses are not
Well,
supposed to go there.
yeah, it's like a Vegas show basically. But
Yeah.
after the show, there's like a dancing and all that. Just by myself, like my personality type, I do not like loud music or loud talks and stuff like that. Besides you, like you do, but I I so it's not something I actually enjoy, but I used to put up with because you're a teenager and want to be
Yeah.
light and be with everybody else.
Well,
Well, at
yeah.
that time I was in my 20s, actually, not a teenager anymore.
I mean, I did lots of stuff
But
that
yeah,
my friends wanted to do that I had no interest
sorry.
in, but it's just kind of like, peer pressure and things like that.
Yeah.
And you want to be normal. Okay. So when did you switch to Italian?
Um, so the English was hosting an Italian congregation. They were thinking about that because there were a lot of Italian Canadians moving in, and the Italians just in general were coming to Playa del Carmen. So we started. Um, I don't quite know the year, but I want to say about 2005, 2005, 6. That's when we started Italian. I was one of the first ones in there. Uh, but then the elder said, well, we need you back in the English. So they moved me back to the English.
Yeah.
But
Like, because you're what I guess the phrase is you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, in that sense. And so,
yeah, and also was a servant. And because everybody was so excited about Italian, even if they didn't speak the language, they went there anyways, and they did not want to go back to the English. And there were servants and elders that had like power to decide whatever influence in the congregation.
yeah.
So since I had no influence, they moved me around whenever or wherever they want to. So I ended up going back to the English because of that. When they actually needed me in the Italian.
Okay. Yeah, but you know how the witnesses work. It's kind of like whoever has the most power gets to decide what's going on. And typically speaking, English is going to win that battle every time because
Yeah,
the
every time.
governing
Yeah.
body speaks English. And it's definitely an American colonial religion. And so that is the case. So you were a servant twice then.
Yes.
Okay. What happened the
Yes.
first time? Why would you not? What happened?
Officially, there's two versions. There's my unofficial version, which like that I'll tell people around because I was ashamed. I was caught watching gay pornography.
Okay.
Uh, I used to live in this complex with like there were a lot of witnesses, and my best friend brother, he didn't like me basically. So, anyways, I made a stupid this idea, stupid thing. I took the computer everybody was using, and I was watching some porn, and I forgot to delete it, to delete the history and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to lock the computer in the house, and nobody's able to get in. So I went out to get a drink or something, and when I came back, the computer wasn't there, and I was kind of okay. I wasn't thinking much about that. And then this guy comes and like confronted me. It's like, oh, you were watching gay porn. I said, oh, yeah, and it's like, oh, this is bad. And it's like, oh, are you sure it was me? Oh, the computer wasn't your place. So he went to the elders, and actually, I kind of got away with that with the elders without. I mean, I got away with the elders knowing it was actually gay porn because he told them I was watching porn.
Correct. And so, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've watched the other videos with like XGW Analyzer or Lloyd Evans. There is a distinguishing in the Elder's Handbook. A lot of witnesses didn't know that watching straight porn is totally okay. Nothing
Yep.
really is going to ever happen to you. You might maybe get removed as a servant or an elder, but nothing severe. So if they would have known that you were watching gay porn, it would be more severe.
Yep.
And that's why I was
Yep.
going to ask you if there was any kind of judicial committee, because if they would have known that, that would have
Yes.
been the case.
It was not judicial committee. I actually he did not call the elders. Let me change that because I called the elders.
Yeah.
He told them you need to call the elders, otherwise I will. I
Yeah.
said no, I will call the elders. That's why I got away with it because I omitted that part. So I
Okay.
called the elders. I said, because again, guilt. So I called them and said, I need to talk with you, and can we have a meeting? And said, what is it about? I said, well, I was watching porn. So they didn't ask me, anybody catch you watching porn? Are you doing it of your own volition, or your own will? They didn't ask me any of that. I just called them and said, you need to talk. I was watching porn. So two elders, two friends of mine, quote unquote, because they're not really friends. once you're an
Snitches.
elder, once an elder, you become a servant of the organization. Your loyalty is always to the organization, not to the person. So anyway, so I called them and said, I was watching porn, and said, okay, what kind of porn? I said, just random porn, soft porn. And they're like, okay, don't watch it anymore, but we want to announce it that we need to remove you as a servant. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
fine. So that's the official version. The unofficial version is like I was under too much stress, which was kind of true. And I said I could not continue being a servant because I was depressed
Yeah.
um, for for the obvious reasons. At that point I was 19 when I went to a psychiatrist. I said, I'm being depressed. I have the symptoms. So anyways, so from that point on, and the elders knew I was seeing a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist. I'm sorry.
Psychiatrist.
Um, and so they kind of didn't continue doing more with the porn situation because of that too. So they said, okay, we just remove you from being a servant, but you can continue. At that point, I was also being a pioneer, but you can continue being a pioneer. So I was still a pioneer,
Which is
and
still exalted position, but okay.
yeah.
It's
So so yeah, to answer your question, yeah, the unofficial answer it was because I was depressed.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to pornography, I mean, I've heard so many different stories from different people. I've heard of congregations that just like threw the book at people, and everyone in the congregation, treated
Sorry.
this brother like he was. Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to open the window.
Open the window. Yeah. There's only one season where he lives. Okay. It's always hot. And so I've seen places where they threw the book at the brother, you know, and like the elders' wives were talking about him. And so like you kind of got off pretty well, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I never really had any issues when I confessed anything about pornography. You know, I was already going through the judicial committee for homosexuality to begin with, fornication. So they really didn't care about the porn. And you know, I remember them asking me what I was watching, and I was just like, I mean, I've seen everything, you know, and like, which was true. And in America, at least in California where I grew up, you know, the teenagers openly watched porn as Jehovah's Witnesses, and like we would like watch it together and then like go out and service afterwards. And I know that's not the case everywhere, and so there's might be a different stigma there. Uh, and so depending on the elder body, different things could happen. Okay,
Mhm.
and so let's fast forward. You got removed as a servant, but then you were still a pioneer, and you were an English congregation in Cancun or Playa del Carmen.
At that point, it was Playa del Carmen.
Playa del Carmen, okay.
Yeah.
And when did you join the Puerto Morelos congregation?
So this couple, like you said, like fast forward, there were like two congregations already, two English congregations in Playa del Carmen. This one family from Minnesota, they moved into the area, the Trans, and they moved to Puerto
No
Morelos.
last names.
So
It's fine.
the
Our
Trans
kids
were
are
my
like all apostate
congregation.
now. No matter.
I think so. I don't. I have no idea what. What was his
Taylor.
name again?
Taylor.
Taylor. Yeah.
He's crazy, man.
But the whole family is an issue. But they're good people just in general.
I agree.
They're very much they give too much, and they give. They're givers,
Yeah,
and
they're generous people.
but
Little cuckoo, but
Ted
generous.
has Ted has a temper, a really bad temper. But anyway, so they moved to Puerto Morelos, and they saw the need in Puerto Morelos to preach. So we were making campaigns to come to Puerto Morelos. Uh, at that time, I was very much fed up with the English. They always tried to be in my life, get into my life, like personal space and everything, asking too much questions. And I said, okay, I need to get up here. So so I moved to Puerto Morelos. Found a little place there, a really nice place, and of course I prayed for that. I pray for a really good place to live in Puerto Morelos, and if that's possible, if God wanted me to be there.
Yeah.
So I did find a really nice place. I found a job there. A brother, actually, I study. He was a study, Ruben.
Okay, I know.
Um, so Ruben is like, okay, I have an opening for underwater photographer. I was at that point I changed my whole career, so I became a diver. So I went down and I started working as an underwater photographer, and then we moved in. Then that's when I met your brother. I met a lot of bunch of people, and here I am. It's been what 8 years.
It was 2012 when you met me in October of 2012, and that was my first time, you know, going out of the country as a pioneer. Uh, uh, we were down there for a month or two,
Yeah, but so yeah.
and maybe 2 months. Nate stayed a little bit longer than I did, but I was just learning Spanish when I moved down there because I literally just switched to Spanish congregation like that spring earlier, and that was the case in that point. And so, and then Tim and Sue moved up from Belize, I believe, to start that congregation.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the glory days of the congregation. And I got fond memories of that first congregation. I think you do too.
I do. Actually, I will haven't. There's a lot of things that escalated to where I am right now.
Yeah.
And I think Tim and Sue live in Puerto Morelos, that they were protecting me too much. in that sense, it was good. They were always making sure I was fine, and were always making sure that I had friends, making sure that I had company. Because again, I'm a lonely type personality. Uh, so if I don't have a stimuli, when people don't push me to do things, then I won't do it. I am very fine to be inside of my head, inside of like in my house. I love outdoors by myself.
Yeah.
So so they always make sure that I would be out, like I have friends and be on service. And actually, I really enjoyed it because they were basically like parents to me. Every Sunday after the meetings, so I would go to their house. We had drinks, a lot of drinks, watch TV, like have dinner, have family time, basically. So when they decided to leave, to go back to the States, that's when everybody stopped talking to me, basically.
Yeah.
And so that pushed me into having no friends, to go back to being depressed, and to really, really struggle again with being gay.
Okay. Interesting. Now let me. I know we skipped over this, but you actually tried dating girls.
I did. I was 20 years old when I met this German girl when I used to work. I used to work in a Spanish school.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the reasons I actually like her because she's very tough. She was like a very tough girl. So not necessarily like this, very
Yeah.
feminine,
You know,
but
Germans have their own
she like
category of porn.
yeah. So
Nine,
I tried
nine.
to date her.
Sorry, that's not. That's
Let's
not
not
good.
go back there again. Uh,
How
but
did that fail miserably? How did dating girls just absolutely just fail miserably?
it did miserably because I was very, as I said before, I was very much aware I like guys, and I said this is not fair for her. I need, I would, because I always knew somehow back in my head that I would end up with a guy.
Yeah.
So I said this is not fair for her. And besides, I was at that point I was a servant. I was still a servant. So I talked with this one brother that was basically like my adoptive father. He took me in. So he's like, "Oh, you know, there's nothing wrong. You're dating her, but you are a servant. You're supposed to be an example." So I basically say, "Okay, we need to break that up."
Yeah.
The other time was with a sister from Sweden. Um, but again,
These all
I,
seem like safety dating. Like you knew they were gonna go anywhere.
exactly, exactly. It was. I did not intentionally do that because of that, but I know that
Maybe
maybe it
subconsciously.
was. Yes, exactly. Unconsciously,
Yeah.
that's what it was. And I did like her as a friend a lot. I
Yeah.
felt
I love
attraction and
women.
all that, but it was not fair. And I said, if
Yeah.
this goes anywhere again, the same thinking is not going to be fair for her. So we broke up.
No,
So that
I
was the only
sympathize with you completely because a lot of people who are not witnesses, you don't date for fun. You
no.
date because you're supposed to get married, and so I
Yes.
could never see myself as a husband, you know, and having this woman in my life, and I'm supposed to take care of her and be the spiritual head and all this other stuff because I was like, that's not really something I wanted to do. And you know, sex aside, that's irrelevant because most witnesses don't have sex anyways. Let's just face it. And you know,
I was we were always kidding that we had better sex than they do.
and so when it came to that, and I remember like a story where you told me that people were talking about me, and because I didn't meet you right away, I met Pio like right away and some other people, and then you didn't come into the picture for a while, and people were telling me, "Oh, you're gonna love Matt. He's just like you," but you didn't
Yeah.
think that because you never really met anybody, you know. Well, in the witnesses, a witness that reads a book, you know, is considered like a scholar, and so like I read science books. You read science books. I
Yes.
spent my free
Yes.
time literally watching documentaries. You know, that's how I had
Yes.
fun. You know, and so it was kind of like I know there was a kinship between the two of us right away, for that matter. And I have my brother in there too in the equation, who's also, you know, an avid reader, but he mostly sticks his nose in fantasy because he's literally afraid of science, and it's sad in that sense. And so you were made a servant with the new
Mhm.
English congregation, and you were given public talks. Let's go ahead talk about more like personality type. You adhere as an INTJ, and typically speaking, you have very stage fright, big
Yes.
issues with public display and things like that, having a
Yes.
very big fear of you know, giving a bad experience in the public eye.
Yeah.
And I remember you like always like tripping at the meeting, you know, when you had
Yes.
parts. And so talk about how, as a Jehovah's Witness, obviously, if you have a penis, you're expected to go on stage and give public discourses, you know, and if
Yes.
you don't, you're considered a bad Christian, you don't love Jehovah, and you hate the congregation. So
Yes.
talk about
Yes.
that struggle in life.
Well, that part of my life, it was a nightmare because, like you said, I don't like to be in front of people teaching like that. I can teach one-on-one. I have no problem with that. But I always wanted to make sure that everything I said on the stage was good and perfect. Try to be, you know, clear. Everything you said, it was just that's right. And inside of my head, I was like very much uptight. And when I was at the meetings, I always had a stress. I would never say hi to anybody. To sit back, and I always had my specific chair. That if people took my chair, I basically ripped the head off.
This
So
is all true, people.
so I would sit back. I was always, what's the word? There's a word you use in English, sulking. I was very much sulking. That's mean sulk. S
Solemn?
U L K. S
Oh,
U
sulking.
L K. Yeah, and I was like always like that, sitting in the back. A few
Yeah.
people I felt comfortable with, I would get out of my chair and say hi to.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would allow people to come to me, say hi, and don't linger, leave again,
Yeah.
like just stay. But anyways, because I had all that in my head, like I had talks, 1 or 2 talks a night, every
Yeah.
meeting,
In a
and
second language.
yes, and so I I was always in that mood, and I was known as Fernando with a mood, basically, because I did not like, first of all, crowds. There were a lot of people, and the Kindle Hall is very small and echo everywhere. So you hear the voices like 10 times louder, and people being loud, Matt being loud.
Yeah. Um, and the neighbors of the Kingdom Hall were staunch Catholics, I believe, and they hate the witnesses, and they would
Yes,
play loud music during the meeting. So, um,
yes.
if
And
I
there were
heard you
mechanics
talking,
too, so they had their cars, try testing the cars very loud, the motors being really loud and banging stuff. So
and
all of that did not contribute.
at this time there was no air conditioning either.
Yeah,
This is tropical Cancun, people, 90 degrees all year long, if not hotter. And you had no AC, so you're on stage where the heat all went anyways, and you had a fan blowing on you, so you couldn't even have papers with you because they blow. And so it was just like a maelstrom
mm,
of just like chaos, you know. And then like
yeah.
it was just funny to me. And uh,
I hated every second I was up there in that stage. Every time.
yeah,
Even if it was a subject I liked, I was like, I like this, but I don't want to be in front of these people and telling them all this. And to me, it always being in front of the stage was kind of ridiculous because I was telling them something they already read. I was telling them something they were already familiar with. So
yeah.
it's like, why I'm here again, you know, vomiting back what they already read at home. So it's like, what is the point of me being up here?
Yeah.
you
Uh,
know,
it, a lot of people ask that question because, even in the scriptures, if you want to believe it, and take it for what it is, Paul mentioned many different gifts for different people. not everybody was a teacher, not everyone was a prophet, but in the Jehovah's Witness faith, everyone's everything. Unless you're a woman, then you can't be anything. But you can clean the bathrooms. You're good enough for that. But so let's fast forward that, so people understand, the anxiety and things like that. But then that congregation dissolved because of some psycho circuit overseer, correct?
Oh, we're talking about the Dark Ages now.
Oh yeah, yes. We're doing everything. We're about to get into some serious dirt. Come on, this is nothing.
So yes, there was a rumor going on that English congregations were going to be disappearing.
They did.
And some of them did disappear. We disappeared. So that's when Tim and Sue started thinking about going back and all that. Anyways, but so we went back to the Spanish, and I don't get along with people in Spanish, just culture themselves. I mean, I'm Mexican, yes, but my own personal culture is very much different. Keeping in mind all my personality type too. So you're expected to be outgoing all the freaking time.
Yeah, and it's a community family.
You're expected to be happy and dancing and all that, and be all happy, merry on the Christian work. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I was a servant even then.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to Playa del Carmen for meetings, all meetings. So here I am working till 5 p.m., getting home, have like half an hour to get changed and ready, and go to the Playa del Carmen.
Yeah.
And because I was a servant, I was expected to be there in time, expected to be happy and say hi to everybody, expected to give talks, expected to all of this. In the meantime, I'm dying. It's like, dude, I have a break my whole freaking day, and my work is very physical. I am streaming all
and social.
day. And social. And then I go to a meeting where everybody expected you to be social, and it's like, I'm ready to kill people here.
Yeah, I get it. When I worked restaurants, and I had to do that, and I'm an extrovert though, so there's that. But still, by the time I got to the meeting, I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I talk to people all day.
And again, going back to being gay, you have all this mental struggle. You have all these things you're fighting. You have economic situation. Then you have all this pressure from the elders, and it was too much. So if I was already in a really dark mood when it was in Puerto Morelos, even a small congregation, just imagine that in Playa del Carmen, which we had about 200 and something people.
Yeah, because all the congregations went into one because everyone's on vacation 365 and nobody wanted to leave even though there was really zero reason. I mean, what was service like? What was the point?
There was no point.
There was no point. Did you guys have carts yet?
No point. Sorry?
Did you have carts when you were in Playa?
Carts or car?
Carts, like the displayjw.org cart.
Oh, no. Yeah. Actually, they were starting introducing them. Actually, yes, they were starting introducing them. They would make, they would teach them how to use them and all that. So that was kind of the beginning of the cards. Yes. So anyways, so actually that was the beginning of the end, basically for me in many ways. The elders, they were expecting me to be social and spend my little income going out and have lunch, dinner, and breakfast with everybody.
Yeah.
And I told them I just cannot do that. So the elders in the English back then started complaining about me because I wasn't being social. So they were finding ways for me to be stepped down. I was an assistant to accounting in the assemblies.
Yeah.
So one time the elder, the CEO pulled me over and said, Fernando, they're conspiring against you, and read me a letter. And I was like, is this for real? And he's like, no, this is for real. So from that point on, it's like, I have all this stress, and then I have this conspiracy against me.
Oh, I was there when you were going through that because you're skipping ahead of Playa del Carmen. You're going into Puerto Morelos
Yeah.
now. Okay.
So
And so in Puerto Morelos, you had I can't even think of the other's name. So at this time you had Bill, you had
Jim, it was Bill, Jim, Tim was still around, Mark,
and Mark. Mark was the name I was looking
and
for.
what's his face? Benjamin.
Yeah. Okay. And Mark was a super socialite. I mean, it also helped that he was always drunk, so that worked. And the fact that he hated his wife, and so was always trying to gather people together to go out to eat because she would go home and he would eat. It was interesting, that kind of dynamic. And so I want to emphasize this on people who are watching this. It's like everyone down there has American income, but they're living in Mexico, and so going out to eat and going out to drink every night is no big deal to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a big deal for them. Yes.
And so there were Mexicans in the congregation, and it was kind of like two congregations in one, because even people like Ben and Marisol, they couldn't do this every day either. Even though
No,
they were
no,
pretty well
they could
off.
not. They could not, but they had or have really good income. They have
Okay,
their own
yeah,
business,
for
but it's still,
Mexican, but not like them.
yeah, yeah. Basically, they could not do that either. That much.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I was expected to do all that. So you want me to continue, or you have another question?
No, you go ahead. I don't care.
Okay,
This is your show.
so no, it's your show, but so it got to a point that I was with no friends to start with. The few guys that were in the congregation, Jordan was not a real friend because again, everything I said, yes, that too. But everything I said or
But he had a
do, he
beard.
would go and report. Yeah. So, so he would go back and report to the elders. That's their job. So, so the circuit officer was passing by, and they said, "Okay, Fernando, it's time for shepherding visits. We're gonna be making shepherd visits, and you go with so and so." So I used to go do shepherd visits as well. And they said, "Okay, it's time to do your shepherd visit." And I said, "Okay." And said, "Is there something you want to talk about?" I said, "Well, I don't have friends, and you all hang out, you do stuff, you expect me to hang out, but you never call me, you never do anything." It's like, "Oh, but you need to be the one to take the step." And I said, "I freaking make the step like 10 times already, and nobody wants to hang out." So at that point, is your job
Yeah.
trying to be social. Like, I don't care. Like, I just invite me over to have a family worship or stuff like that. I don't care, but I made my steps. I call people, I try to do stuff, and nobody will do anything. So they said, no, no. I said, okay, we're going to have the shopping visit. It's going to be uplifting. We're going to do, we're going to talk about that and find a way where we can find a situation for that, solution for that. I said, okay. So one day after a meeting, I think it was a Sunday meeting, they said, okay, Fernando, let's get into the shopping visit. It was Jamie and Benjamin. So as soon as we got in there, they said, okay, Fernando, the elders were talking, and because you're not social, we need to remove you as a servant.
Yeah. And I was there with that because Matt and I were down there, and Matt's my husband, and was my husband. We'll get into that later. But although at the time, I think you had an idea, but that wasn't really open, and nobody really knew about it. Yeah, I remember because I think when Matt and I went down there, we kind of gave you some friendship in that sense. Because even though Matt mostly wanted to talk about Jesus nonstop, which was fine at the time because both of us were,
Yeah.
indoctrinated, and spiritual things were of interest to us still. Um,
Yeah, you actually, yes, you guys were the ones, the very few ones that I would hang out with. Um, but the friendship situation was prior to you guys coming back or you
yeah,
coming
yeah, yeah.
back.
No, let
Uh,
me interject to help you out with this too. Is the fact that people need to understand that these guys are all American or Canadian, and so what they would talk about, we're talking about friendship, and they're not talking about things that pertain to what's going on in Mexico. They're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. They're talking about the Kansas Jaybirds. You know, they're most of them from Kansas, just so you people know. And they were
Well,
talking about nonsense that means nothing to you. You know,
they
it's not.
wanted, and they also wanted me. They would go and play golf,
Yeah, it's like
and they would
$70.
talk about that. They would talk about that in front of me. It's like, yeah, we're going to play golf and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, we need somebody to. And it's like, did you ever, well, you know, I don't have the money, but can you even ask me if I can join you?
Yeah, well, I never got asked, just so you know, and I had an 8 handicap. They would never invite me, and
Yeah,
lucky,
the point was that they were not even willing to, even ask or say, oh, change subjects. Okay, Fernando's there. Let's be nice and talk about something else. And besides, to me, that's very stupid conversations anyway. I like deep conversations, and every time I say, okay, let's talk about, Brad. Brad is
yeah,
empty-headed.
like an
So when we
IQ
were
of
in
80.
so we were talking in the car, and I would bring subjects like science and stuff like that.
Elder Brad, be respectful.
So I would try to talk about science, stuff like that. He's like, oh yeah, did you watch football? I was like, I didn't watch the football. Actually, the wife, Kelly, she's a very smart woman. I've
Yeah,
known her for many, many years, even before we kind of grew up together, Kelly and I, and the English. So she plays music and she loves science and stuff like that. So her and I would talk, and Brad would get very, very jealous.
yeah. I mean, he was jealous of me, and I was like, "Listen, I don't care about your stupid wife." And uh, I mean, she is an interesting woman. You're right, and it's a shame. You
Yeah.
see this a lot in the witness faith, where you'll see these women, and you're like, "Why are they with that loser?" You know,
Yes.
and you have to think about it. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are what 70% women.
Yeah.
You know, and you can only
All
marry
that.
other
Yeah.
witnesses, and so even though he's dumb and uninteresting, his dad's rich. He's a ministerial servant, and he's available,
Well,
and he's
yes.
not
Yeah.
ugly. You know, he does have that. Okay. Um,
Yeah, but I think Kelly could have done way, way better.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, we all make
Yeah.
decisions
Yeah.
in life, you know, and
I'm not judging her. Just saying that.
so I am. No, I'm joking. Like, I get that, you know, and the two of them kind of like, we'll go back on what people they're on vacation down there, you know, and Brad and Kelly, neither of them have real jobs, you know, but neither of them are pioneering.
Mhm.
And so we're always asking the question, what are people doing? And so we had like this schedule of service down there, and it would just be like you, Matt, and I pretty much out in service all the time, you
Yeah,
know.
I had days that I had to take a group out, and they were like, you too.
Yeah,
So we,
and
we would end up going to eat, basically.
so I
We
mean
would go do some card work and go and eat. Yeah, go ahead.
every congregation has their problem with secret service, and that's what you always call it when the pioneers are out in service by themselves. We have no idea where they are, but that congregation, you know, they weren't even pioneering, and we had no idea where everybody was. You know, and whether they're probably inebriated was the problem, but it was just interesting in that whole concept there. And tell me your a couple times I know you got offended because we had people there that were serving where the need was great, and these two people I love, Madam and Jessica. I think they're sincere witnesses.
Yes, they
I
are.
do
Yeah.
believe they believe what they're doing. They are indoctrinated and fully engulfed in the cult, but they are at least true Christians. They both have serious health problems, but they still pioneer.
Yeah.
That being said, but they would do stuff like and post on Facebook that are completely offensive to Mexicans in that sense, because it's like, this is where we live. Look at this crap hole, you know, essentially. And, oh, I have to ride a bike to the meeting, you know, like this. Meanwhile, they're making friends with everybody down there, you know,
Yeah.
and, and to me,
I mean, they did not mean to be condescending.
I
It's
know they
just,
didn't, but they're
but
decadent. They're decadent
but
Americans.
for me, it was. For me, it was like, this is crap hole. This is where people live. Oh, this is where people live here. So
Yeah,
they're like, oh, we don't have hot water today. It's like, guess what? 70% of people living in this town don't have hot water.
yeah. And it's, I mean, what's his face? Ben was it? Was yeah? Ben was the circuit overseer, right? And
Who?
Ben was the circuit officer Benjamin.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. I'm keeping his last name out, even though he's a circuit officer. Who cares? But he even pointed out in one of the local news talks. I remember this head for head was because like they were saying talking about TIM, which is an acronym people were saying this is Mexico, and to me, I never really quite. I actually got offended by most of that stuff what people would say about it because I mean I thought we all knew that's the whole reason we were down here where the need was great was it was where you had to live for less like Jesus and you're going to preach, but meanwhile it's always that witness thing where you need to have like cookie points where look how great I am, let me virtue signal about what I'm doing for God. And granted, I'm not 100% innocent from doing that. And obviously, I did enjoy the extra treatment I got from my American friends because everyone thought I was doing such great things. And to me, Mexico was wonderful, and I can live there right now. How I love the country and I love that area. Anybody who thought it was hard to me as an American or Canadian down there with that income living, they're just absolutely delusional. And I always got disgusted at the assembly parts where people would go on stage and talk about how great they were. And this was open, in the assembly, people would just go on stage and like, oh, we're really serving here. And these people like in Playa del Carmen, and there's like 100 publishers in this congregation, and there's like no English people there. Their service is absolutely useless, and they really just hang out playing basketball all day, Netflix or drinking, and how as a Mexican, as a person there, witnessing this stuff from the stage, although you went to a lot of English, I mean, a lot of Spanish assemblies to save money on travel, but you usually went to the circuit though.
Can you
in Merida.
Ask the question in Merida?
How would you view this when the people are on stage like virtue signaling, grandstanding?
I would laugh mentally because I knew the people, and everybody knew the people. Everybody know them, and then we all knew there was just a show. Because first of all, when you go on stage, you basically have a script that you make. Like, okay, this is where it's gonna be, and you present them to them, and it's like, no, they changed 70% of that.
Yeah, that was one of my wake-up points.
When you go on stage, you're basically reading what they want you to read and say. It's not necessarily the truth. So they make it very dramatic, or they make it, like, oh, you're giving everything up, and when in reality, we know, oh, they're going party every night. They do have the money, and they just they live in this condo in front of the beach, and they're sitting there drinking margaritas and not suffering at all. Anything that they're saying is true. So I'm like, aren't we the same people now? Because this is a different version of life. Am I in a multi-universe now? Because they are not the same people.
Yeah. And it's crazy, and I think back to it, and the whole reason I went down there, even married, the whole reason I went to that congregation, and I think I've told you this many before, was because it was a sinning congregation. Yeah. And so I knew I could hide there. And like we mentioned, Mark, he was the coordinator, and he was appointing his son as an elder, like within 3 years. The guy just got reinstated pretty much. And not a pioneer, no job. I have no idea what he was doing at this time down there. And it was just like brazen corruption, with the appointing of people. Meanwhile, you're getting kicked off because you're not spending $20 a night with them, drinking margaritas and getting Americanized Mexican food. They didn't go to the Mexican restaurants. They went to the ones made for tourists at that. And so, which are relative the same price of USA, close to at least maybe 25% discount. And with that in mind, let's get into, obviously you're going to leave his name anonymous, and that's fine. You had your friends, you even had the AJ from Utah. I'm pretty sure he's gay.
Actually, I don't want to be into gossip, but he got married. I met the wife 3 days ago.
Okay. What does that mean?
Nothing. It's just saying that.
Exactly.
He starts to cover up his gayness by
Yeah.
getting a wife.
Uh,
But okay, what was your question again? I kind of got lost in the
when
moment.
did you start, exploring outside? Because you had the situation with me, and my whole marriage was kind of falling apart at that time. And for something, I just kind of jumped in. And granted, Matt and I we were Matt and Matt, by the way. Mateo
Yeah,
uno, Mateo
mathematics.
dos. Okay, and like everyone knew us in the area, and I mean, he's like a brother to me, and I love him like that in that sense, but I don't love him in the sense of like husband and husband anymore. And, which is fine. And he's fine with that too. But that whole meltdown was going on. You saw our dynamic, but meanwhile, cause I was coming and going,
Mhm.
and, I was in Mexico, then I was, trying to talk to other people up in the United States, and there was that meltdown going on, but you were kind of adventuring off your own way.
Uh, so you wanted to relate about how where I am right now? That's what you're asking me?
Yeah, so this is part of your
Okay.
wake up process.
So yes. So just a little before, since I'm a diver, we tend to be social and have more friends outside the witnesses. Um, I like music, so I started learning music, and so I took that as a way to take all my stress out, to have an interest. So from this point on, I started realizing that I needed more time to practice rather than to go on service because it was taking me nowhere to go on service. So I would spend more time to practice in the morning, keep coming up with excuses that I have to work or something. Um, that's when I started getting to know more people and become friends with people outside the witnesses. Um, but then when I found out about you guys being husband and then we went to Europe, um, that kind of opened up for me.
No, you went to Europe with my husband.
Actually, yes. Actually,
And
yes.
then I met you guys in
No, that's what
Rome.
we. We didn't have. There was no relationship. um, okay, so a little bit before that, I was planning a bicycle tour. Okay, I was fed up with everything, and it's like I
Yeah.
need to get away from here. So I was planning a bicycle tour, which I did actually do September 2018. In January 2018, there was a friend of a friend. Um, they came to visit. Then his friend came to visit. So this friend and I became friends, started talking, and then we realized that we felt attracted to each other. So we're texting and video calling and all that, and um, he actually came to visit a week before we left for Europe. So we kind of established something, and him being a witness too, of course. So when we were in Europe, I was having a relationship with him, um, even sexual relationship. To make a long story short, we tried to keep something going on. We had to break it up, not necessarily because being witnesses. It was a long distance, so we realized that it was better for us to continue to be friends. He is in fact one of my best friends. If I have questions, if I have doubts or anything, I will always go to him. He's he got. I don't want to get too much into him because it's not his story,
Yeah,
but
he's Pimo,
he was.
right?
Huh?
He's
He's
Pimo, correct?
Pimo. He's a
Yeah.
Pimo, yeah, and he's an atheist.
Okay.
He goes to the meetings. He still try to live the witness way, but he doesn't go service. He doesn't comment at the meetings,
I couldn't
anything like that.
imagine doing that now.
He just does it because of family situation. So each person deals with this in a different way.
Yeah.
He's
I get
totally
that.
an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an atheist, and again, he's my best friend. Um, Talking with him and coming to realization, and also I left for Central America. I did a bicycle tour from Panama all the way to Mexico. Um, I was away from the witnesses, away from indoctrination, and at that point, I was already awakened. So, so being
What
away
woke
from
you up?
all the crap that was happening in the congregation, people trying to get into my life, and we were
But that's been happening for
kind
years.
of
Your
you and I were
entire
talking
life has been like
before.
that.
Yes, but I had enough. I
Okay.
had enough.
So
I
you didn't have
started
like
reading
you didn't have the
publications.
aha moment?
I had a aha moment after I took the step of living.
Okay.
At that point, I said I don't want anything to do with these people because obviously they do not have Holy Spirit, and because you guys were a good example of that too. After finding out what was happening, I said, well, Matt and Matt, they were the most people. They were the people that spend the most time out in service, great talks and everything. So there's obviously the Holy Spirit in there. And then I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah.
You're married?
Well, the thing
uh,
about it was, for myself personally, is that was one of the big things for me was I was still able to give all the talks the same. I was still able to go out in the service just the same. So either Jehovah doesn't exist or he's approving me. And I thought
yeah,
he approved it, because I was fully
yeah,
indoctrinated at the time. And so obviously this union was allowed because nothing changed. You're always told that when you're sinning, the Holy Spirit goes away from you and your whole life becomes dark and evil. And if anything, I was doing better in the truth than any time before.
yeah.
Uh,
And that actually, well, there were many aha moments. That when I started having that relationship with this witness, um, he would tell me little things like, "Oh, did you watch this? Have you seen that?" And but the middle of our relationship, I was like, "Okay, the witnesses are not the people I thought they were." But I still believed in some point in God and the Bible and all that. And um, so my aha moment was basically that this organization is crap. This
yeah.
organization is not a true Christian organization. The people living here has a double life. People here, they do not have God's spirit. They are not this, they're not that, and they're not what I thought it was. So I said I need to have a plan to escape. Uh, the bicycle tour actually started way before I woke up. So I already had the bicycle tour in mind.
You
So I
were talking
said,
about that
this
for
is,
years.
huh?
You were talking about that for years.
Yes, yes. And it finally came, it was about a year basically. But it happened. And I said, this is my moment. I'm walking away from here, I'm walking away from these people. In fact, a week before I left, I said, I have enough of this.
Yeah.
I was making research if Christians can be gay or something like that. I was making researches like that, even at the Kindle Hall. I was sitting
On
down,
the Kingdom
people.
Hall Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I was using the Kindle Hall Wi-Fi
Jehovah
to
didn't
do that
stop
research.
that.
Well, apparently Holy Spirit was backing me up, and so I said like, okay, there's many Christians organizations that they allow to be gay and they still be a preacher and be in that, and so like, this I will never be happy in this organization. I will never be myself. I will never have a husband here, and everything will be a lie, a lie to myself, a lie to the person I am. Again, but my personality type does not allow me to lie to myself, and I was doing that to me for so many years. So I said, this is the moment I need to be true to myself. And again, having my having this friend, this person I had a relationship with as my coach, I was like, okay, this is not possible. I cannot do this anymore. I need to be me. If you don't know anything about witnesses, you technically can be gay in the witness, but you cannot have roommates, you cannot be with kids, you cannot have a girlfriend, basically, or you're basically an outsider. You go and tell the elders, I'm a gay, and they said, oh, they cut every communication, everything. You still being a witness, but they're watching you.
Yeah. I mean, I know.
You're a
I've told them
pervert.
twice like an idiot. You know, you get treated like a
Yeah,
pedophile.
yeah. And even if you're not, but that's the way you're treated. So I said, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm walking away from this because I will never be happy with it.
Okay.
I never come to that. I will never come to be Fernando. I will never come to be me. So I decided I'm walking away from this. So again, like I mentioned, a week or so before, and there's something else that happened, and I'm going to that too. But a week before all that, I said, in the middle of the public talk finished, and I said, I got up and I walked away. And that was August 2018. I
Okay.
walked away and I never came back.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's get into that, because you went on a really, really cool bicycle trip to Central America. You pretty much spent every penny you had, right? Essentially,
Yes.
to doing that. And then you got
Yes.
back, and like the witnesses were mad at you and pretty much soft shunning you because you weren't turning in your time, essentially. And so it wasn't like you came back and they're like, oh, we're so glad to see you. It was
No.
like, you're a heathen. You
There
need
was
to
a
grovel.
situation that happened. There was a situation that happened before I left. So at that point, I started seeing guys, even though that relationship I had, it was an open relationship. So I made friends with a guy. So he and I started walking on the beach, and suddenly he turns around and kisses me.
Yeah, I know
And
the story. Okay, yeah.
there were like flooding lights around us, by the way. So he turns around and kisses me. In the background, there was one of the elders' wife and kid. They saw me.
Marisol, right?
Huh?
Marisol?
Yeah, Marisol Benjamin. And so, anyways, he did not confront me right away. I did go to my last assembly with my mom that weekend. Um, Actually, they were showing the the lesbian clip about the wristband and all
Oh, yeah.
that. And
Because I'm a Jehovah's
so
Witness, and the Bible says that sexual
yes,
relations between a man and a woman. I'm like, oh, great, you're just in a lesbian store. You know, why don't you just like, oh my God, whatever.
yeah, whatever. So anyways, going to back to the story. So Benjamin comes and no, a few elders called and said, "Oh, Fernando, we need to talk." And I said, at that point, I was already very rebellious. I have not respect for elders anymore because I decided that this is not, the truth, the Bible truth, that the witnesses were not who they were. I thought they were. And in my mind, the authority was an authority I was given to them. And I decided to take that authority away from them. So they will call me and it's like, Fernando, we need to meet. I said, I'm not meeting until you tell me what the fuck this is about.
Yeah.
I use a very soft word there, actually. So Jordan will call me. Jordan's like, oh, we need to talk. We need to meet. I said, Jordan, I'm not meeting with you unless you tell me what this is about.
Yeah.
So he would not answer. So I had to call Mark. I said, Mark, what is this about? Tell me. Oh, they saw you with a guy and you're having interaction with him. And I said, and I started laughing, like, what kind of interaction? I was like, oh, you should not laugh at this. This is a very, very serious situation. And so that's why, tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, they saw you kissing that guy. And it's like, okay, first of all, I did not turn around and kiss him. He kissed me. And he was like, oh, well, but we need to talk about it. And I said, okay, let's sit down and talk. Are you coming? And you, Jordan, coming talking about? And he says, no, it's Jordan and Benjamin. And I said, okay, you said Benjamin saw me doing this. So Benjamin is the witness So he's going to be also the one that is going to have the word if I'm going to this fellowship or not. He's the one. He's one of the two elders coming to meet me. I said, no, that's not right. Benjamin can come and join me on that, but as a witness, not as an elder. And he's
Yeah.
like, this is not how things work. And I said, well, I don't care how things work. This is not right. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? Okay, let's have the meeting, but it's going to be in my house at this time of the day. If you do not show up exactly at that time, I'm not opening my door.
Okay.
Like, oh, but we want you to meet at the Kingdom Hall. Like, no, you're meeting at my place at this time, and this is what is going to happen. If you're not happy with this, we're not meeting.
Now, why did you want to do
So,
that?
huh?
What advantage do you think that was?
The advantage was that if I needed to call the police to kick them out, I would.
Okay, I get that. Okay. Yeah, because you
And they
have
were
an
in my
advantage that
house.
I didn't have, because you're actually belong in that country, while meanwhile we all really didn't. You know,
Yeah,
because most of us were tourists. Ronnie is supposed to be preaching to begin with.
yeah. And also another thing is I wanted to know that they were not in control.
Yeah, I get that.
I wanted to know that those were my rules, and if the meeting was going to happen, is because I was allowing it to happen,
Yeah,
and under my circumstances.
yeah.
So it happened. They came at the time, and we were talking, and they understood. They said, okay. They said, well, Fernando, we saw you doing that. I said, Benjamin, yes, but I don't. First of all, I don't think this is correct that you're here judging me when you are the witness too. I said, what you saw might not be what actually happened. By the way, that guy and I had had sex before, so
Yeah, I know.
so that had nothing to do with the kiss. I
Yeah,
did not kiss him. The whole point was that he was kissing me, that
yeah,
I kissed him back, and it's like no. The whole thing is that. But anyways, so I got to talk to them and said, and they were like, okay, maybe you should watch out your association better. I said, I do agree. Um, and I said, you have to let me know right now if I'm going to get a scholarship because I'm going to this bicycle trip and I don't want any drama when I come back. So it's either I'm out or I'm not, like right now. And they look at each other. It's like, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. You can
yeah.
go and everything is good.
They
So that
can't do
was
anything
2 weeks.
maybe uncleanness, sort of with a gay kiss, but they have to really stretch it. And not that congregation, they wouldn't do that.
No. But the point is, when I came back, like you said, I was not welcome with big hugs and parties and party and everything like that, or dinner or anything. I actually, when I came back, I had no one. I let the elders know I was back. Um,
And you stayed again with
and
my husband.
I didn't say your husband. What happened is that I had no place to come back. So I was calling the elders, like, okay, I need at least a week, so like a place I need to come in. So I ended up calling the husband. Yes, I said, okay, Matt, this is the situation. At that point, Matt was already disfellowshipped.
Yeah.
Um, so Matt is like, well, I'm coming in visits. I mean, I have you can rent. I can help you out. So I'm going to rent the house next door, so you can move in there. So that's what I did.
You stayed
All
with
this
his
time,
mom, Julia, right?
sorry.
You stayed with his mom, Julia, too, for a bit.
For a bit, yes, but she was coming and going, so she never was there. Uh, the I actually like her. She,
You
she was
would.
fun for me. Uh, but the story was that when I
She's
came
okay.
back,
I
the,
mean,
the elders were trying to contact me. They were harassing me, and I kept telling them, do not meet me, do not talk to me in public unless I allow you to.
yeah,
So it got to the point where an elder sent a text message that said, Fernando, I hope you can live with your conscience.
yeah,
So I texted him back. I said, whoa, good. I said, okay, what happened if I was very depressed and I killed myself? So he didn't answer. So one day, one of those days, I was out by the beach area, and they came and approached me, And I saw them. I saw them, and I allowed it. I allowed to come and talk to me because I saw them before. And it's like, if I didn't want to, I would just walk away. I
Yeah.
wanted to come to a conclusion. So they came and like, hey, Fernando, how you doing? Like, really good. How was your basketball trip? Excellent. And it was an eye opening. That's all. And it was like, oh, can we sit down? I was like, no, you cannot sit down. What do you want? Oh, well, we want to have a meeting with you. And I said, I'm not coming to any meetings with you. I was told everything was fine and good. Now you're telling me it's not. It's not my problem. Don't have communication between each other. It's not my problem. Oh, but well, we need to talk with. And I said, you already come to a conclusion. You already came to a decision. Go ahead, do it. And they're like, no, we have not come to a conclusion. I said, Bill, I already told you. I sent you a message that the message you sent me was very nasty. I said, what if I had killed myself right there at that point? How would I feel right now? He's like, I would feel no different.
Yeah. And this is coming from an elder who's morbidly obese, disgusting, and has no reason to, judge anybody.
Yeah. So this other elder right away said, oh, you should write a dissociation letter. I said, I'm not doing such a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not playing your games.
Yeah.
You're going to do what you're going to do. I'm not going to any meetings. I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm done with this. I'm done. If you come to a decision that you need to disfellowship me, go ahead. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They have not. they have not.
I'm not disfellowshipped either. They haven't done anything with me. They did contact a bunch of elders. They obviously told Tim over in Napa, and that's when I got accosted at the assembly hall by Tony Sherwood. I'm going to say his name out loud because he's retarded. And but he literally accosted me right there in the assembly hall, shaking like he was Phineas or something, And I'm just like, he's like, oh, don't mock Jehovah, Matt. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're married and you have a husband. I'm like, where's my husband at? I'm like, I'm here by myself. I'm like, anyways, I don't have time to talk about this kind of stuff. I got stuff to do. And it was funny about that whole thing. And then I got contacted, and it's so funny that the elders, the way they behaved, kind of woke both of us up a lot. And if they would have just left me alone, my whole goal was to get divorced, go to Europe, and come back 2 years and kind of avoid the judicial committee. Yes. Because I would be inactive. I'd done it before, and I know that loophole, and so that was my whole goal. I was planning on coming back, if they would have left me alone, but they kept hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting until I finally woke up and I said, why are these people acting like they're in a cult? That was like exactly what I'm asking. And you don't know you're in a cult when you're in a cult. Yes. And then you finally just have all that aha moment. Like, well, why are they acting like cult leaders? What's their problem? I mean, seriously, They have nothing else to do. And that's kind of how that was. But I know you read like the Lloyd Evans book.
Yes. So while I was doing the bicycle tour, I was in communication with this Pimo, the guy I was having a relationship with. So he would actually, before I left, he was telling me, hey, have you watched these videos? So I started watching videos. So he introduced me to Lloyd, introduced me to, there are a lot. At that point, I didn't even know. And it was very interesting that I did not even fight against myself to watch it. I said, I'm going to watch this. And so watching all videos. I watched almost every Lloyd video.
Were you able to watch it right away?
Yes, because I didn't have internet. I had internet.
No, that's not what I meant. When I first started watching Lloyd, he offended me. And so my first apostate I was able to watch all the way through was XJW Analyzer, and then XJW Critical Thinker. And then I was able to finally get into Lloyd Evans and John.
I started with him.
Okay.
Right away.
I was offended by him right away. I was like, ugh,
No, I was not. I was open because I already made my decision about this organization. So I was open to listen to the sobering words.
Excellent.
If I have to say, you have to describe Lloyd in a way, he's very direct, and I like that. I
Well,
like
he's
that,
an
and
ESTJ, so that's what they do.
there's no going around. So I like the way how he presented things. His way of thinking to me was very clear. So anyway, so I started watching videos, I started reading articles, I started making my investigations. Then I I was introduced into the Royal Commission, Australian Royal Commission. I watched it. I So by the time I came back from the bicycle tour, I was an atheist. I was a complete atheist. And again, if there's people watching that are believers in God, it's fine. I respect very much their point of views, but I'm not a believer of God anymore. Um, I, for my own conclusions, I came to. I won't push anybody to believe. I do suggest to make investigation. That's the only thing I can suggest people to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
but
there's not
I
much
did a
research
lot of
needed.
investigation. Yes.
It falls apart pretty quickly. I guess if you're able to process it, I call myself agnostic leaning atheist. I'm a big fan of energies and metaphysical things like that. And so that's why I don't jump to the full conclusion, because I think there probably is some kind of spirit, but I can't prove it. Do I think he's involved in our lives right now? No, not at all. And obviously the Bible
uh,
is garbage, and
well, according to my personality type, is very scientific thinking too. So if there is an evidence, I will not be against unbelieving again.
yeah,
It's just for me right now, it is what the evidence is pointing to be, and uh, and that's it. I always try to find a way that what my decisions come to be, I have an opening to believe if
yeah,
there is it. I'm
yeah.
not close into not to. There's so many questions I've asked myself about not necessarily God or Jehovah or Jehovah, um, that I actually believe in. But I can, if there's an evidence of a God or something, a higher power that has made us. Just like you said, that is not even involved with our life. I will respect that. I
Yeah,
will completely respect that, because this, for me, there's no evidence that he has been involved with my life. Most of the good things that has happened in my life is because people are good.
correct.
We tend to think people are bad in general, but there's good people around. Even in that
Most people
organization,
are good.
there's a lot of people that care for other people, that genuinely care.
Yeah,
Um, like Lloyd even said in some of his videos, says when people are not witnesses anymore, does not turn them into good people just by default. If you were an idiot, you were an asshole in the organization, you're still gonna be an asshole outside the organization.
yeah, they're all over Facebook.
So so yeah, they're all over Facebook. So yeah, so this is where I am right now at this point of my life. I had I started living with a man. I'm fully embraced my homosexuality. My mom is still being a witness. She make a phone call and she said, "Fernando, I know." And she said, "I don't care what society says, what the Watchtower says. You are my son. I gave birth to you. I raised you. I know who you are." And she said, "I want you to be happy, and I want to be part of your happiness." And so she has met my partner at that time. Right now, I'm kind of single,
Kind of
but
single.
kind of single. Uh, but I, she's come to accept it. She has come to
Yeah,
accept, completely understand that she knows that I've never have not changed since I came out. She's she actually took me out of the closet per se. uh, so, but she has not changed her personality. She has not changed her behavior towards me. I talked to her about the videos and all stuff like that, and um, and I say I will completely respect your point of view if you don't want to change them, but this is the evidence. And but we have a really good relationship, actually even better,
Yeah.
despite the grip the Watchtower has on her. She is a mom first. She's a human being
Yeah.
first, before being a witness.
Let me just come to your mother's defense on this case. Also, people understand that in Mexico, there's not a whole lot of retirement security. But if she's in the Kingdom Hall, there is sort of like a family community there that takes care of her. And so, due to her age, it makes a lot of sense. A very pragmatic choice to remain. Chemo, perhaps. We don't know. I would,
Yes, actually, that's something that she said. She said, I understand all this, and she's like, I have seen a lot of things that make evidence that God's spirit is not with them. She says, I'm there because I love God and I love Jesus. I'm not there because of men. I'm not there because of the elders or anything else. But she said to me, where do you want me to go? You
exactly.
know, there is, she does not really have a lot of friends among the witnesses, but she feels a sense of community and a sense of protection. And I
Yeah.
understand. She's 69 years old, I think 69, 70 years old. And I understand.
I get
I
it too.
understand that.
I'm not, no judgment here.
And she is completely aware of the situations that are happening with the child sex abuse and all that. And but like I said, like as long as I have a relationship with her that is not, um, as long as I have a relationship with her, as long as it's not controlled by the cult,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
No, I mean, if there's something good from your story is the fact that pretty much your only family you have that you care about still talks to you anyways, and you're
Yeah.
good. So you're not really like cast and thrown to the streets. My family doesn't really talk to me. My brother Nate, and a very sobering, disgusting thing he said to me, and he was crying, holding me, our last hug and embrace, and he's blocked me, by the way, on the phone. And he begged me not to research too much. So I have a brother that's someone that skipped grades in school, so intelligent, and he's afraid to read books. And so,
It is one of the things I really hold against the religion is the fact I did not get a higher education.
yeah, same.
If, even though my father was not a witness, he was in purchase education. But remember, I kind of started to become very serious witness when I was age 16. So by the time I finished high school, I didn't want to pursue higher education because we were taught that was not the right thing to do.
It's pretty much a sin.
So if there's one thing I hold against them, I was never sexually abused by any witness or anything like that, but there's two things I really hold against them. Is this, of course, the sex child abuse situation and the higher education.
Yeah,
That's the thing. The two things I really hate the organization for because they're ruining my life. They're
yeah,
ruining my future. They're ruining. I mean, it's not late in life for me, and I'm very happy at the age 35 that I came out from that cult. I'm
yeah,
still young. I still have a lot of life in the future. I've talked. It's very interesting because since I woke up, I've known of people that I grew up with in the religion from the same congregations that have awakened. And there's one specific friend of mine. Um, I won't mention her at all, but as names or anything. But we were affected by the organization, and she asked me. have you ever gone to therapy or something like that? I said, well, not really. I try to keep myself busy playing music, try not to think about the witnesses, try to live my life. If I'm dating somebody, I will walk on the street, hold his hand, and kiss him on the street. If the witnesses see me, I don't care.
Yeah.
They have no power over me anymore. But that's the way I am. But something I told her, I said, well, there were not necessarily everything was bad in the organization. There were good
Yeah.
things I learned from, things that that made me the man I am, and good qualities things. There were good things that gave me. There were good qualities. But I told her, something that is I'm really thankful is that we got away. We here of that stage of our life, still being young. We still have a life in front of us. We still be able to correct the damage that they have put on us. So we still have a life in front of us. So if you're waking up, somebody that's watching is waking up and think that we're screwed up for life, we're not. If you're still young enough, you can correct it. There's things that we can correct. Even if you're old enough, you can correct it.
Yeah.
You can. It's about having the willingness to leave all that behind. It was a stage of our lives, but it was only that. It's a stage of our lives. It's like when you come out of a relationship, you come out of a relationship, a job, or something. You leave that behind, but you take what is good.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned to do.
There's a good saying that I live by now: never allow suffering to go to waste.
True,
And
true.
so,
You can learn from that.
most definitely. And whenever you live, whoever you meet, whether good or bad, you take something from it, from that experience, because life's all about experience anyways, and it's a very short lived experience of that. And so there's no reason to waste your time and energy. And my heart goes out to people like Mark, for instance. He's been doing this his whole life.
Yes,
He's lived
yes.
in a terrible marriage. He can't talk to two of his own kids. For what?
For nothing
Spaghetti
really.
monster. And so and in fact, remember when I was just there in the summertime, and I was there with you and Darren, we were walking in the street eating tacos, and the three of us were walking the sidewalk, and he
Yeah.
pulls up in his stupid car, stops, and we're like staring at him, and we're like, hi, and he's
Hello.
expecting us to like grovel and be fearful of him. I'm like, listen, you got no power over me, I don't care.
Yeah,
And
that's not happening over anymore. It's not happening again.
but when you're in the cult, you don't think that way. And so, I mean, I'm sure he's saying under his breath, I mean, if he is fully in, which I think he is, um, Satan will, got a hold of them, and, all this nonsense, that they can't prove. All right. And so it is crazy and things like that. And I know you hang out a lot with a lot of marine biologists and things like that, and people who have
Yes.
masters and PhDs, and, they were all able to go through school. And I had the same, regrets, because obviously, I have a bachelor's degree, but it's not in the subject that I would have chose. I went into only to serve Jehovah, and
Yeah.
I went through school being raised to be something else. My brother was raised through school to be something else, and now he's afraid of reading science books. And so it's crazy on the power hold. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Um.
You had a good little conclusion there that was really heart touching, and but
Yeah. No. I think that like for right now is that's all that's in my head. Um. But yeah, again, don't let just in general don't let those fears of maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. Um, don't be afraid to live your life. Don't be afraid to make the mistakes. Don't be afraid. There was a book, well-known book, and also well-known movie, Call Me by Your Name, and one of the things that they say there, the father was having the conversation with his son about pain, about the relationship, and he said, "Don't let it go." Basically, not word by word, but the idea was own the pain,
Yeah.
make it yours, because, like you said, that will make you stronger. That will make you. If there was something good in it, own it, make it
Yeah.
yours. And from the pain, remember, from the pain, take what this organization has done to us, so we don't do it to somebody else. Because we were under the influences, so we were basically we were having that personality that they were had. We wanted or not. So it's a very it is a organization that is so damaging that it becomes part of us, and sometimes we do things unconsciously that we imitate the organization again. So take the good thing with you, and the bad things from the organization, take, keep it in a place in your mind that where if you start acting back that way, make a comparison with that.
Yeah.
You know? So I that's basically, I don't know
Yeah.
really how to explain what I'm trying to say, but like you said, own it, own the
Any
pain.
advice for a PMO or somebody who's recently out who's gay and trying to you know, we can even talk about tips about staying STD free, for that matter, and when you get out and you have all this freedom, you know, uh, be smart, be safe, but any kind of like articles or thoughts on coming to grips of who you are and being okay with that? Any advice on that? It's a big subject.
Uh, as for books and information, I would say, well, Germ's videos are actually very good to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
because you're not going to pray
and
the gay away. It's not going
no,
away.
it's not
I
going
tried,
away.
people.
And I
I
tried.
tried.
I tried,
Yeah.
I cried it away, I laughed it away, and it does not go anywhere. It stays here.
Yeah.
Just be careful. Just in general, something that witnesses say, the world is bad people and you cannot trust them. I would say take a little bit of that advice. Not everybody outside is good, but not everybody is bad.
Yeah.
So not automatically because you're out, you're free, or you want to be free. It doesn't qualify everybody as a good friend, even in the gay community.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful. And I don't like to like you. I don't really like to say, oh, they're bad, just the gay or anything. Just in general, people out there, just be careful who you make friends with. Uh, make sure that the new friendship, because now you're the one responsible for your friendships.
Yeah.
Now you're the one who has the will, who has the power to choose friendships. Be careful who you make friends with. Make sure that you have friends that are going to bring something in your life, good quality friends, friends that they will not take you to dark paths. Because again, even in the organization, we had terrible friendships,
Yeah. No, you're right.
very bad friendships. So we want to make sure, you want to make sure that because now you have the choice to make the choice good. And how do you make the choice? Just find people that will bring good things to your life. And even friends that you already have, if they do not bring anything good quality or are going to be able to help you to have a better future, maybe it's time to let them go too.
Yeah. If I might add something myself, we can talk about picking friends, and don't expect everyone in the XJW community to be okay with you being gay.
Yeah,
There's still
exactly.
discrimination in the XJW community, quite a bit. This includes in the world, in the regular world. And so when you're gay, you come out twice because you leave Jehovah and then you have to come out to the world, and
Yes.
you're a
Yeah.
minority, and so it's automatic, and so that's not always the case. So you'll run into people who are bitter, gay people,
Yeah.
not just witnesses, have real screwed up coming out parties, other religions, other people who are even atheists, uh, their kids go through a lot, coming out. And so my advice is, A, you don't want to hang out with bitter XGWs, and you don't want to hang out with bitter gay people.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
are two people you need to watch out for, and people who want to love life, who want to move on. This is who you want to be. If I might add about Fernando here, and I'm so happy he did this interview with me. The man you see here is not the man I knew 5 years ago. And when I saw you last summer, I was shocked, and I made that very clear because you were just so happy. And
Yes.
that's something I never saw before, because you were a basket case. Let me just say it. When you were a witness, I mean, you're just angry all the time and you're on edge. And I got there, you're joking and smiling. And I was like, who is this person? And so,
Yeah. That's true.
and
That's sadly it's true.
yeah. And
The,
so
the
there is,
person, the person I really was or always been is has that organization did so much damage to
yeah,
that kid, to that person. Um, that, like I mentioned in the beginning, I was always acting, always thinking 10 steps ahead
yeah,
so I don't get caught watching a guy.
yeah. All right, man. I'm so happy you did this. This was a lot of fun. We're gonna stop this now,
Okay,
but thanks to my friend and my brother Fernando, I consider you family. I hope that's
same
mutual,
here.
and we will end this right here.